When Samantha Blake was little, she dreamed of changing the world. At 8, she designed plans for eco-friendly houses using Lego, and at 10, she wrote in a notebook about creating an app to help the elderly navigate the city. But in the Blake family, dreams weren't valued. Only money, status, and control mattered. "Samantha, you live in fantasies. This isn't a Netflix series, it's real life," Aunt Karen would say whenever Samantha mentioned wanting to study innovation management at Stanford. Her brother Mark only laughed. "Who would invest in you? We can't even afford a new boiler, and she's dreaming about startups." The most painful thing was realizing that her family wasn't just unsupportive, they actively worked against her. When Samantha received a university scholarship, her brother, accidentally, failed to pass on the crucial application documents. When she had an interview at a small tech company, her sister Tiffany sent an anonymous letter with false accusations. She didn't get the job. But Samantha didn't break. She worked as a barista by day and studied online at night. She joined a mentorship program for women in tech and began developing her own app. Her life became silence, code, and coffee. One evening, she received a letter. Her uncle, Richard Blake, founder of the tech giant Blake Tech, with whom the family had long lost contact, had died. And he left everything to her. It was unexpected. Her uncle had seen something special in her since childhood. When she was 12, he gave her her first laptop. And back then, he said, "Your strength lies in the fact that you're not like them. Hold on to that." He hadn't just left her money, he left her the company. Through a trust agreement, she was to become the primary shareholder of Blake Tech, but only after completing a succession program, a series of challenges to prove she was worthy of leadership. The final step, to enter the company incognito, work through various internal departments, and demonstrate her skills not as a Blake, but as an ordinary employee. And Samantha accepted the challenge. She changed her last name on her resume, built a modest portfolio, and applied. She was hired into the development department under the name Sam Keller. There, in a sleek office in San Francisco, she met people who believed in technology, not surnames. She worked alongside people who didn't know her story, and for the first time, that gave her freedom. Until, a month later, Tiffany and Mark walked into the office, not as visitors, but as new project managers. The family had long tried to infiltrate her uncle's company, and after his death, they used every connection to get into Blake Tech. They didn't recognize her. "Samantha? Oh, you're the barista who once mixed up my cocoa," Tiffany mocked, barely glancing at her. "Kind of cool they hired you. You'll finally see what real business looks like," Mark added. Samantha stayed silent. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel the need to prove her worth to them. She knew what lay ahead. They thought she was just another shadow. But they didn't know that every word they spoke was a nail in their own coffin. That every scheme they plotted was being recorded. That soon, she would stand in the center of the boardroom, and they would listen in silence. But before that came weeks of planning. Weeks of silence. Weeks, as dreams slowly turned into revenge. The week after Uncle Richard's death passed in a haze. Samantha could hardly believe the contents of the legal letter. She read it over and over. "You are the primary beneficiary of the RB Legacy Trust, which owns 56% of Blake Tech's shares. Official ownership transfer is contingent upon completing a probationary period in the company at a lower position, without revealing your identity." It felt like the plot of a TV series. But this was her life. Blake Tech wasn't just a company, it was one of Silicon Valley's key players. Since the 70s, it had developed security systems, then artificial intelligence, and in recent years, smart solutions for urban infrastructure. Its market value exceeded $4 billion. Samantha remembered sitting in the backyard with Uncle Richard as a child, listening to him talk about creating his first product, a motion detector assembled from parts bought at a local radio shop. His passion for building, for calculated risks, that was what impressed her back then. And it was what shaped her desire to be part of the world of technology. But now, she had to be careful. One wrong move, and her family would destroy everything. She rented a small apartment in Milpitas to be closer to Blake Tech's office in San Jose. Her workdays started with coffee at 6:30 a.m. and ended after 10 p.m. She listened, observed, studied the company's inner workings. While others tried to showcase themselves, she noted who lied to whom, who stole ideas, and who actually did the work. She paid special attention to Carlos, a mid-level financial analyst. Unlike most, he wasn't chasing personal gain. One day during a break, he told her, "You know, Sam, Blake Tech feels like a skyscraper without a foundation right now. One strong wind, and it'll collapse. We've lost the spirit this company was founded on." Samantha simply nodded. But inside, something stirred. She had to bring that spirit back. Her relatives, meanwhile, acted like sharks. Tiffany had been appointed a project manager solely due to her connections with a board member. She had no technical background but spoke loudly and demanded loyalty. Mark worked in the innovation department, though he had no clue how any technology functioned. He spent his time scheming, collecting gossip, twisting reports, and turning meetings into a circus. And the higher they climbed in the company hierarchy, the more aggressively they discussed removing unnecessary employees and forcing their vision on the corporation, including selling off parts of it to foreign investors, which went against Richard's legacy. Samantha remained silent. She listened to their plans, gathered data, built dossiers. She worked with the trust fund's legal team, finalizing her strategy for taking control. Most importantly, she was assembling her own team, Carlos, along with two key developers, June and Ali, who thought she was just a smart colleague but were already recognizing her leadership. At night, she came home, kicked off her heels, drank black tea, and reviewed the files she had collected, chats, emails, meeting recordings. Everything would be needed. One of the strangest moments came in her 4th month at Blake Tech. Tiffany held a small meeting in a conference room where she openly discussed how to get rid of Sam Keller. "She's too active," Tiffany said. "And she's winning over the employees. We need to either transfer her to another department or create a situation where her contract doesn't get renewed." Mark nodded. "Maybe we should make it look like she leaked internal data?" Samantha sat quietly in the corner, suppressing the fire inside her. She smiled, just a little. Just enough not to raise suspicion. "You have no idea who you're trying to eliminate," she thought. "I own this place. And soon you'll realize it." The next day, her attorney, Celine Park, called. "Samantha, the board meeting is scheduled for July 17th. That's the day you officially become CEO. Do they know yet?" Samantha asked quietly. "No. Per your request, we're keeping it a secret until the last moment. But your presence at that meeting needs to be powerful." Samantha looked out the window. People moved, cars passed, clouds drifted. Everything appeared ordinary, but she knew everything was about to change. July 17th would be the day when dreams no longer needed protecting. It would be the day she reclaimed her company and put an end to the lies. In the company, Sam Keller was already seen as smart but quiet. No one considered her a threat. And that was her greatest strength, her invisibility. "Don't you think she's sticking her nose everywhere?" Mark grumbled as he stepped out of the elevator beside Tiffany. "She just accidentally overheard me explaining our new algorithm idea again. She's not even a programmer." Tiffany waved dismissively. "She's here for show. After she's fired, we won't even remember her." Samantha heard their words. And she noted every remark in a file titled "Final Strike." The atmosphere at Blake Tech was strange, a mix of dedication and deception. Some worked tirelessly, others played power games. Samantha lived between these two worlds. By day, a regular analyst. By night, the architect of a reckoning. She didn't just want to expose Tiffany and Mark, she wanted to change the company's structure, restoring the values it was built on. That was why she wasn't rushing. She played their game, but on her terms. One Monday, Samantha gained access to the internal server and saw something that shifted her plan entirely. Tiffany and Mark were preparing a presentation for the board, proposing to sell one of the company's most valuable technologies to a Chinese venture fund, violating NDAs and internal security regulations. They planned to bypass legal oversight using their friendly ties within the board. This was betrayal, documented betrayal. Samantha knew the time was coming. She gathered her team, Carlos, June, and Ali. In a small, unused room on the top floor, she revealed part of the truth for the first time. I'm not just Sam Keller. My name is Samantha Blake. I am the primary heir to Blake Tech, and in 2 weeks, I will officially become CEO. Carlos was silent for a few seconds, then said, This is the best news of my life. But, June hesitated. Why are you telling us now? Because I want you to be the first to see how we dismantled the rotten system. But to do that, I need your help. And your silence. They agreed. From that moment, every day became preparation. They gathered copies of documents, emails, Tiffany's internal presentations. Carlos conducted a deep audit of her financial transactions and uncovered major violations. Ali intercepted a piece of code that Tiffany planned to claim as her own, though it belonged to another team. June compiled video analytics from internal cameras showing Mark breaching server security protocols. Samantha planned everything meticulously. Entering the boardroom, precisely after Tiffany's grand presentation on selling company assets. A meeting with the board chair, the day before the session, securing official support. A press release, scheduled for July 17 at 2 p.m., announcing Blake Tech's new course. 3 days before the meeting, Tiffany and Mark suspected nothing. They were celebrating their inevitable promotion at the company cafe. One step away from CEO, Mark, Tiffany chuckled. I can already see us in Forbes. And no gray little Sam Keller is going to stop us. They didn't even notice as Samantha passed by with a barely perceptible smile. Their days were numbered. And she was ready. The sun rose slowly over San Jose, but Samantha Blake had been awake for hours. She stood in front of the mirror in her apartment, fastening a light beige blazer, the same color her mother wore when she worked as a janitor in the building where Samantha would now become CEO. It wasn't just clothing. It was armor. At 10 a.m., the quarterly Blake Tech board meeting began in the Central Conference Hall. Typically, this was a gathering where strategic decisions were discussed, new projects approved, and senior executives presented their updates. But this time, something was different. On stage stood Tiffany, dressed in a striking red suit, her hair perfectly styled, exuding endless confidence. So I present a plan that will elevate Blake Tech to the international level, a strategic partnership with investors from Shenzhen, she announced, clicking through slides. This will provide immediate capital, prevent losses, and most importantly, open access to the Asian market. Figures, graphs, and logos flashed on the large screens. We must act quickly, Tiffany added. If we sign the deal by the end of the week, we'll receive $300 million next month. Board members exchanged glances, some nodding, others hesitating. Then silence. A director asked, And who initiated this proposal? I did. And my brother Mark. Tiffany gestured toward Mark, who sat projecting an air of strategic contemplation. And who approved the sale of the Smart Grid X technology? Another voice asked from the board. It's a formality. Tiffany dodged. We submitted preliminary documentation. The legal department is preparing the papers. The doors opened. All heads turned. Samantha entered the room. She walked slowly, deliberately. Eyes locked onto her. Some confused, some startled, and Tiffany, she went pale. Sam. What are you doing here? My name is not Sam Keller, Samantha said evenly. My name is Samantha Blake. And I am the new CEO of Blake Tech. A dead silence fell over the room. Is this a joke? Mark stammered, standing up. No. You missed the legal details, just as you missed so much else. I am the rightful heir of my uncle, Richard Blake. And under the terms of his trust, after 4 months of internal probation, I officially assumed the role of CEO. And today, that day has arrived. She placed a thin folder in front of each board member, labeled Audit Report, Blake Tech Internal Integrity Analysis. Here are documented violations of corporate policy, attempts at illegal sales of intellectual property, financial manipulations, and abuses of power by Tiffany Blake and Mark Blake. The director of security flipped open the documents, his expression tightening as he scanned the pages filled with recorded statements, screenshots, and emails. You betrayed the company you worked for. You prioritized yourselves over its mission, over its team, over innovation. And now, you will answer for it. This is ridiculous, Tiffany yelled. She staged this whole thing. You seriously want to hand $1 billion company to some girl who worked as a subordinate? Samantha didn't flinch. You never saw my strength because you were blinded by arrogance. But I saw right through you. And you know the difference between you and me? I never sought power, I sought justice. The board voted unanimously in her favor. An hour later, the company's press office released an official statement. Blake Tech welcomes its new CEO, Samantha Blake, heir to its founder. Her vision is a return to innovation, integrity, and the future. That evening, Samantha stood on the rooftop of the headquarters. Beside her were Carlos, June, and Ollie. They gazed at the city, glowing in the night. What now? June asked. Now we build a company that never has to hide from the truth, Samantha answered. She remembered standing here a month ago, unseen, silent, hesitant. But now, she was here as the master of the game. Dreams had survived. And they had won.